Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks again for tuning in to KAKM for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Looking at satellite imagery here of out over the western Aleutians, low pressure out here just west of Shimia there, and that brought a frontal system that brought gusty winds, gale force winds and rain to the western and then central Aleutians and across the southwest Bering Sea with gusts to about 45 miles per hour. And farther to the east, some moisture here that brought some rain to the Pribilofs and fog last night, spreading in toward the southwest coast. A lot of low clouds here in across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta today, breaking up there on the lee side of the Kilburk Mountains there over northern Bristol Bay. But the low pressure area that was over the southwest interior yesterday moved up into the central interior, and some rainfall amounts from the mid-Tanana Valley on back to the west, with showers extending down at least into the morning hours this morning into the Kuskokwim Valley and across into the Susitna Valley as well. Clearing out though over south central Alaska, the North Gulf Coast, and then the Copper River Basin starting out pretty good, and then some moisture moving in later in the afternoon there. And the Panhandle down here over the southern areas, those showers and clouds dissipated throughout the day, with the showers just about ending, but you can see a pretty good moisture plume streaming northeastward here up toward the northern Panhandle, and that'll bring a chance of rain into the north, or about the central coastal area, central north coast later tonight. Today down that way again, starting out with some showers around, and then that ending and getting some partial clearing down there, a net up to 71 this afternoon with some sunshine. Otherwise here through the central interior, some pretty good rainfall amounts. Again, Portman, Farewell came in with about half an inch of rain, and Flat had about an inch of rain. So some pretty good soaking rains there over the west central interior areas, with wetting rains into the mid-Tanana Valley of about a quarter to a third of an inch, or a tenth to a third of an inch in some areas there. Then lesser amounts here farther to the east. And then some scattered thunderstorms, with the sun provided enough warming to trigger some thunderstorm activity today here over the eastern interior. And then that 1,008 millibar low up there over the eastern Brooks Range kept some showers and a lot of clouds there in the area of the eastern North Slope, eastern Arctic coast, and the Brooks Range area. Areas of low clouds and fog giving way to just cloudy skies this afternoon along much of the Arctic coastal areas. And then this trough, again, spreading a lot of moisture, rain, fog, light rain, fog and drizzle there to the southwest coast, and then extending back to the west-northwest there. Lots of clouds out here over the Bering Sea, very little if any clearing. Looked like may have cleared out a little bit there around Adak earlier on, but the winds and the rain on the way in with that front. And you'll see tonight gale force winds in the forecast with a gust of 50 miles per hour here for the central Aleutians and up into the south central Bering Sea areas. Small craft advisories continue out to the west there, with lighter winds here over the Fox Islands, high pressure building northward here. So this trough will keep a chance of showers or drizzle and fog along the southwest coast with some IFR conditions, marginal VFR pushing inland, much like it did earlier today. Some scattered showers over the Alaska Range areas and the Copper River Basin to start with. Mostly the northern areas, just variably cloudy here over southern Alaska. And this system and the moisture with the warm front spreads a chance of rain up to about Sitka to Elfin Cove later on tonight. Otherwise, mostly cloudy or general increase in the clouds across the Panhandle, and then up to the north, low clouds and fog up along the Arctic coast, again redeveloping tonight, and showers across the eastern North Slope and the Brooks Range all the way back to the west there. But showers now mostly over the Tanana Valley and up to about the White Mountains, some scattered showers up over the upper Yukon Valley. And then tomorrow we'll see as this ridge continues to build, that will kick this trough up to the north a little bit there. So there's a chance of some showers and clouds and areas of fog there, lower flying conditions here for the Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound on down into the Yukon Delta, and that middle Yukon Valley area, southern Koyukuk region there, but not too bad up over Kotzebue Sound. Some partly sunny skies developing, mostly sunny, partly to mostly sunny here across all of southern Alaska, Prince William Sound, the North Gulf Coast, looking really good tomorrow all the way back to the Alaska Range. Then you get into some clouds around the Kuskokwim Valley areas, and then scattered thunderstorms possible for the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country down into the eastern Alaska Range area. But the Copper River Basin will be fair for the most part and dry with some scattered showers over the mountainous terrain there. And again, chance of thunderstorms along the eastern Alaska Range. And then rain likely here for the northern southeast coast, but drier and fairer down to the south there as that low pressure scoots up to the north a little bit, but really not going to continue northward. It should take a turn to the east here, and that'll bring a chance of rain across the southern Panhandle areas tomorrow night. But in the meantime, this front stalled out here with the high pressure building northward, so it's kind of laying parallel to the wind flow there, the isobar. So those gale force winds continue over the central Aleutians in a narrower band there in advance of that front and up into the southern Bering Sea areas, along with a band of rain. Look for some periods of fog there for the Pribilof Islands, but nothing too serious. And then the main low hanging back to the west, so that's going to keep it showery and unsettled back over the western Aleutians. And up to the north, the trough will kick off partly some scattered thunderstorm activity there for the northern upper Yukon Valley area, the uplands, and the eastern to maybe central Brooks Range with some scattered showers again over the central and north central interior areas. And again for tomorrow night, this will kick through, and on Monday just leave some showers behind over the southern southeast coast. We'll see some mostly cloudy skies with scattered showers diminishing throughout the afternoon, becoming fair, partly sunny there over the central and northern Panhandle, but some showers will still be lingering from all along the Canadian border here from Skagway all the way down to Stewart and Hyder. And again, mostly sunny skies here with warm temperatures. Look for highs in the mid-70s there for Valdez on Monday. And warm sunny conditions for the North Gulf Coast. Same forecast here for south central Alaska. Kodiak Island looking really good. Just some variable clouds in over Bristol Bay. High pressure keeping it dry here all along the west coast. Some of that leftover moisture scooting up to the mid-Yukon Valley area there, but just some scattered isolated showers at most. And then some scattered thunderstorm activity possible there over the northeast interior with some scattered showers over the central Brooks Range down into the northern Koyukuk Valley. And then that low cloud and fog condition on the eastern and central Arctic coast. But again, mostly sunny here over the northwest valleys down across the Seward Peninsula. And then we've got this system sliding northeastward here with that frontal system pushing rain and gusty winds up across eastern Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula and in across the southeast Bering Sea as well. Up to the Pribilofs looks pretty wet and windy, but small craft advisory winds, 25 to 30 knot winds associated with this as opposed to the gales we saw today. And that main low center again still hanging back to the west there, so that's going to keep it again cool and showery and unsettled back over the western Aleutians, southwest Bering Sea. Temperatures today along the southeast coast look like this. Upper 50s to, well, in some cases lower 70s. Annette at 71 this afternoon. Ketchikan had 66, 62 at Klawock, 60 degrees at Sitka, and Juneau up to 64 with a 60-degree reading there at Yakutat. About the same over at Cordova. Valdez, though, cooler at 55. 67 in Anchorage, 59 both at Kenai and Homer. About the same in Kodiak. In the Copper River Basin, a little bit of sunshine earlier today allowed Gulkana up to 66 degrees, 69 at Northway, but the cooler, more cloudy conditions, rainfall, 54 degrees there at Fairbanks. But Tanana pushed up to 61. And Fort Yukon had 64 today, Bettles 59, 61 at Anatuvik, and 54 on the Arctic coast there at Dead Horse, or close to the Arctic coast. Barrow, 43 today, about the same in Wainwright, 49 at Atusuk, and in the 40s down the coastline there, but around the bend, 52 at Point Hope. 51 there at Kotzebue, but 10 degrees warmer at Buckland with 48 down at Nome, 52 at Golovin, mostly in the 50s here over the southwest coast and Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta areas. McGrath did reach 60 this afternoon with 52 at Sparivon, and lower 50s here for the Pribilof Islands, mid to upper 40s for the western and central Aleutian areas, and 50s here for the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians, with Unalaska coming in with 55. Lows for tonight, upper 40s to near 50 here, 45 to 50 for the Alaska Peninsula, and about the same there for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Otherwise, 40s to lower 50s here across southern Alaska, and that same temperature pattern really right up into the interior as well, except a few more 50s up here to the north, especially over the upper Yukon Valley. Much of that area won't drop toward, will stay above the 50-degree mark. Upper 40s to lower 50s for the Panhandle. And for highs tomorrow, into the 60s here over the central interior, a little milder up over the upper Yukon Valley areas, 40s to mid-50s up along the Arctic coast and North Slope areas. Actually, the central and western North Slope could reach the lower 60s up there, with the southeast coast here again, warmest conditions down in the south. Most of that moisture will be up to the north, so 65 to 70 again down toward Ketchikan and Annette and possibly Klawock, but 70s here. More sunshine, northwest winds coming off the Alaska Range should allow temperatures into the upper 60s to lower 70s across all areas of south central Alaska, Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast as well. Even warmer on Monday in that area, mid to upper 60s here for the Bristol Bay zones. And for flying weather, IFR right along the coast, or marginal VFR right along the coast of the Panhandle. Should be mostly a VFR day here across this area, but some of that marginal VFR earlier in the day could slip on inland a ways there over the northern areas, but for the most part, marginal VFR staying along and off the coast here. So VFR across south central Alaska. Possible marginal VFR here with that moisture coming up and then sliding eastward, but the IFR retreating northward here up to the Yukon Delta coast, much of Norton Sound and St. Lawrence Island. Also look for some IFR along the central and eastern Arctic coast with a band of IFR through the Bering Sea down into the west central Aleutians. Taking a look at passes, Anatuvik looks marginal at times tomorrow, as does Adigan, with Lake Clark and Merrill, though, becoming VFR, rainy VFR, but possible marginal VFR on that western entrance, especially early in the day. Windy, marginal VFR to start with, and improving. Isabel, marginal VFR. Mentasta, marginal to start and becoming VFR. For Tanita, VFR. Portage, marginal, becoming VFR, and Chilkoot and White, both VFR. Looking at the freezing levels, well, about 8,000 feet here across much of, just about all of mainland Alaska. Then you get into a little more of a gradient here, 10 to 12,000 feet over the central and southern southeast coast there. Again, that's where that jet stream's cutting right across that area, carrying that moisture northeastward, bringing that chance of rain in tomorrow, or tonight and tomorrow. Otherwise, a little cooler the farther west you go, but not all that much. Icing threats there with that stationary front here from the southern central Bering Sea southward across Adak and Atka. Could be some light to isolated moderate rime icing above 8,000 feet. Some of that also up here over the northeast interior. Could be mixed icing as well. And then the moisture plume coming north here, looking for it above 10,000 feet of rime icing, light to very isolated moderate icing here over the northern southeast coast. Most of that, if not all of it, staying to the east of Yakutat. And looking at the winds aloft here, high pressure building over the southwest Bering, Bristol Bay, in across the southwest interior. Northwest dry flow here coming across the Alaska Range, so sunshine, warmer temperatures for the next couple of days over southern Alaska, and then that jet pulling the moisture northward, and this low again will kick through tomorrow night and early on Monday, and then should improve and dry out the following day. And this system out here is going to stay parked out in the western Bering for another couple of days, and then it'll make a move off to the east again, probably on late Monday and on Tuesday. Winds aloft at 9,000 feet, southerlies 25 to 45 knots over the Aleutians, a little lighter here, but still pretty brisk over the Bering Sea. Taking a turn to the east into the interior at about 20 to 25 knots. About the same pattern with just a variation in the wind speeds here at 3,000 feet. Still strongest here over the western and central Aleutian areas, up to 35 knots into the Bering Sea. Then west to east flow here, 20 to 25 knots through the interior. And turbulence, maybe some below 3,000 feet of the light to isolated and moderate mechanical turbulence here, Kodiak Island, the western Alaska Range, and the eastern Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound. More extensive area of turbulence out here where the winds are stronger in the central Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
The flood that buried Fairbanks in water that was 4 to 5 feet deep started on August 8th, 1967.
We had strong southwest flow in August 1967, and this provided a very large area of moisture from the North Pacific and the southern Bering Sea to be lifted up and into interior Alaska. We had a stationary frontal boundary persist across interior Alaska for over a week. So as weather systems moved in off the North Pacific and into the Bering Sea, they moved across this frontal boundary. So we had continuous weather systems moving right across the interior, which kept bringing more and more rainfall to the Fairbanks area.
Now, there are a lot of conditions to help create this extensive, this persistent rainfall. And of course, moisture is one of them. But moisture from a typhoon?
It was Typhoon Hope, which had been spinning around in the western Pacific, got pulled up into this flow, and that warm, moist air from the typhoon got pushed into the interior.
Normally, the Alaska Range prevents a lot of moisture from making its way into the Fairbanks area or into the interior. In August of 1967, that heavy influx of moisture from Typhoon Hope took a different path.
You've got the Alaska Range here, the Brooks Range here. There's really no high terrain here, and that moisture just can slide right in and right into Fairbanks. And when it came along this stationary boundary, and then the hills to our north, you know, all that air had to be lifted up, and it cooled, and it caused it to, enhance the precipitation.
So what was learned as a result of the 1967 flood? Well, it cost $240 million to build, and so far there hasn't been a flood since 1967. The closest Fairbanks came to flooding again was on June 4th, 1992.
The flood control project is upstream of downtown Fairbanks. If the water is expected to reach a certain level in downtown Fairbanks, they'll lower the gates here and start shaving off some of that water. If this floodway fills up all the way, the water will eventually overtop this sill and go into the Tanana River and be diverted totally around Fairbanks.
Over 12,000 people were evacuated.
It was so strange to see this current going down the street and the boats going by, and then we got to Barnett Street. It was a little different then, but I just remember the rough water.
He thought something was internally wrong, something had happened inside the house, like a pipe had burst or the sewer had backed up. He had no idea, none of us had any idea that the whole city was flooded. I mean, that was the furthest thing from our mind, thinking about the city flooding. There was no panic. There was just, we got a big problem.
Well, I was almost 5, and I just remember bits and pieces. I remember never being scared and thinking how cool it was watching the water rushing in around the cracks of the front door of our friend's house where we were staying at the time.
The military came and picked us up from our house in a boat. So here's a 4-year-old me sitting on the front of the boat thinking I'm just captain of the world.
There were a lot of very worried people, but everybody was pitching in and helping everybody else.
And then I found out we were actually going to be staying inside a high school on the 2nd floor. It was at Lathrop High School on the 2nd floor, which was a cool thing to me too because I lived in a 1-story home.
The Lathrop Hilton was very busy, of course, with boats arriving and people coming. They wanted the names of everybody there, and then we were in touch with who was staying out at the universities. Always great confusion.
I remember being lifted out the next day by helicopter to the university from the rooftop. I remember that part, and I remember sleeping on tables up at I believe it was the Gruning buildings. The most frightened part, the river had washed the bridge away, and there was a beam that we had to walk across, this raging torrent, and I can remember having to walk across that with my mother and being very frightened. And I remember that being the only real scary part. The rest of it, from a 5-year-old's perspective, was pretty cool.
If I learned anything, it was that there's no need to panic. As long as safety's first, and as long as everyone's safe, the rest is just property.
What makes you stay?
Well, I guess the people. I've always had such a good time here. I enjoyed teaching. I liked it when I worked at the News Miner. I'm involved in lots of things here. I just like the people.
Well, first of all, I talked to some of the old timers, and they said, oh, we'll get maybe a little bit of water in the basement. So I listened to the old timers, but I also, something in my gut told me that this wasn't, this could be a problem.
It was a continuous rain. I mean, there'd be very few breaks.
And this thing came in the night, you know. I got a hold of Bill Wally, and I said, hey, Bill, get on the radio and tell them that we may be having flooding here. And we woke up and the next morning and the city was underwater.
They handed me a sleeping bag and a radio. Safeway was across where the post office is now. They looked like they might have had a ½ inch of water in there. They were pumping it out and trying to keep it out.
Was there concern about looting?
Well, there wasn't to start with. Here come two teenagers in a brand new canoe that was loaded to the gun wall. I just picked up the radio and said, what's the procedure on looting? And immediately Red Boucher's voice, the mayor of Fairbanks, came back and said, unhesitatingly said, shoot on sight. And there was no more looting in Fairbanks.
What has stayed with you till now that you can remember about the flood?
20 years of military and especially combat training. But you take action, and if you end up with egg all over your face, so you made a mistake. If you don't take action and people lose their lives, you will regret it forever.
The mood of the community when the flood hit.
Fantastic. Probably if you look through the archives, I called it the can-do city. At that particular time of year, we were not that far from freeze-up, and the whole community, from the university, Dr. Wood, everybody just pitched in, and I was very proud of them.
Would you change anything if you went through it today?
Not a bit. No, And I'm just thankful I had that gut instinct to go ahead and do what we did. I live in Anchorage now, but Fairbanks will always be my home of heart. They're just a different bunch of people. True pioneer spirit. So, hey, anything we want, anything we set our mind to do in Fairbanks, we get done.
East to southeast winds up to 15 knots on the central and south coast, and the north coast west to northwest at 10 to 15 knots. Lynn Canal increasing to 20 knots from the south tomorrow afternoon will seas up to 4 feet. The central inside water areas variable to southwest at about 10, and some light northwest winds there for Clarence Strait. And the outlook for Monday, northwest winds 20 knots here, seas 68 feet all along the coastline, highest seas down to the south. Otherwise, over the central and southern inside waters, fairly uniform wind forecast there, northwest at 10, seas 2 feet or less, and winds northerly for Lynn Canal there at 15 knots, northern Lynn Canal, seas at about 3 feet. Light variable winds for Cook Inlet tomorrow and light westerlies for Prince William Sound. Westerlies at about 15 knots there for the North Gulf Coast, and west to northwest from Kamishak Bay down across the Barren Islands up to 20 knots. Otherwise west to southwest here around Kodiak Island. And then for Monday, looks like small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands for westerly winds up to 25 knots with northwest winds here for the western Gulf Coast, west at 15 for the central coast, northwest at about 10 for Prince William Sound and northern Cook Inlet, westerlies at 20 there along the east side of Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait southwest at 20. For Bristol Bay tomorrow, westerlies at 15, southwest 15 here on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. On the Pacific side, westerlies 10 to 15 knots all the way up to Sitkinak. And then for Monday, small craft advisories here, southeast 30 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. The southern zone here, southwest 25 knots with seas up to 10 feet. Lighter winds up over Bristol Bay and about 15 knots from the west there, southwest to Sitkinak to Chignik. And for the eastern Aleutians tomorrow, south to southeast winds 20 to 30 knots there. Pretty much sums it up for that forecast. Gale warnings continue tonight and tomorrow here for the central Aleutian areas, and then gradually diminished southerly winds down to 20 knots out towards Shimei with seas at about 8 feet. And then for Monday, that next system rolls northeastward here, so look for some small craft advisory south to southeast winds, 30 knots there coming into the eastern Aleutians with seas building 8 to 12 feet. Southwest winds back here to the west at 20 knots with 7 to 12 foot seas. Southerlies there for the western zone. And for the southwest coast, southwesterlies 10 to 15 knots here, but up to 20 knots from the southwest for St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisories for the northern Bering Sea, St. Matthew Island, southeast 25, and that same forecast extends down across the Pribilof Islands with seas running 8 to 10 feet, or 8 to 11 feet. And then for the outlook on Monday here, east to southeast winds 25 knots there across the northern Bering Sea and the southwest coast, southeasterlies at 20. Small craft advisories continue for the next couple of days there for the Pribilof Islands with seas at about 9 feet. St. Lawrence Island winds becoming southerly at 20 knots. And up along the eastern Arctic coast, we've got westerly winds going up there at 10 to 15 knots. The central coast, more of a northwest direction, but light southwest winds on the western coast. And from Wales to Cape Thompson, southwesterlies 20 to 25 knots tomorrow. And then from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, southerlies at 15. And the Monday forecast, light winds from the southeast here for the central coast, and then light northwest there, barely a breeze there for the eastern coast, but picking up to about 15 knots over toward Kaktovik to Demarcation Point. And then southwesterlies at 20 knots here for the western coast, and Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, southerlies at 20, more of a southwest direction there down across the southeast Chukchi Sea into Kotzebue Sound. And then for tonight, again, a lot of clouds, fog, drizzle, light rain here with moisture, marginal VFR to IFR as this trough kind of slides northward there back up towards St. Lawrence Island. High pressure building up. Ahead of this system, those southerly winds with the front not making much eastward progress, so those gales are going to hold over the central Aleutians and into the south central Bering Sea for tonight. And then the chance of rain reaches the central southeast coast with that warm front as well. Scattered showers up over the interior.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.